Have you ever wondered why God sometimes asks us to give up what we hold dear? Our journey today takes us into the realm of divine calls and the sacred obedience they require. In the grand tapestry of existence, we find ourselves at times pushed towards paths that seem uncharted, unfamiliar, and even uncomfortable. Yet it is in these moments, these divine calls, that we find our true destinies unfolding. Consider the story of Abraham, a man of profound faith, called by God to leave behind everything he held dear: his family, his homeland, his familiar surroundings. What might seem like an act of immense sacrifice was, in fact, a divine orchestration towards a higher purpose. This was not a punishment, but a divine plan for Abraham's elevation. Abraham's obedience was the key that unlocked his destiny. It was his willingness to step into the unknown, to surrender his comfort, and to trust in God's plan that led him towards a life of blessings and divine favor. This act of obedience was a testament to his faith, a faith that was rewarded with a legacy that lives on to this day. His story teaches us that obedience to God's call is not just about giving up what we hold dear. It's about stepping into the unfamiliar, embracing the uncertainty, and trusting in the divine plan. It's about acknowledging that we are part of a grand design, a divine narrative that is unfolding in ways we may not always understand. This divine call is not a call into exile, but a call into purpose. It's a call into a destiny that has been divinely orchestrated for us. It's a call that requires us to leave behind the familiar, to step into the unknown, and to trust in the divine plan. So, when you find yourself standing at the edge of the familiar, looking into the vast expanse of the unknown, remember Abraham. Remember his obedience, his faith, and the divine elevation that followed. Remember that this divine call is not a call into exile, but a call into purpose. Just like Abraham, we too are called to step into our destinies through acts of obedience. Why does the path to our divine destiny often lead us away from familiar people and places? This question may stir in your heart when you enter what we call the season of separation. This season, my dear friends, is not a punishment. It's a sacred process, an essential part of our spiritual journey. It is a divinely orchestrated transition that moves us from a place of waiting to a place of walking, from promise to possession. During this time, obedience becomes our currency, unlocking supernatural blessings and divine wealth transfers. Now, you might wonder, why separation? Why must I leave my loved ones behind? To answer this, let's recall the story of Moses. Born into a Hebrew family, Moses was separated from his kin and raised in Pharaoh's palace. This separation, though painful, was necessary for Moses to step into his divine destiny. It was in the grandeur of the palace, away from his familiar surroundings, that Moses was prepared for his future role as the liberator of his people. Similarly, in our spiritual journey, separation from familiar environments and patterns, often family and long-held relationships, is necessary for our growth and alignment with God's higher calling. This separation might feel like exile or abandonment, but it is actually a process of sanctification and strategic positioning for legacy and supernatural expansion. This season of separation is a time of refinement, a time when we are prepared and equipped for the divine calling upon our lives. It's a time when we are called to release the past, embrace the divine process, and walk forward in faith. It is during this time that we learn to stop seeking validation from those who cannot carry our vision and to trust in God's timing and plans. So remember, it's through the fires of separation that we are refined. It's through the silence of solitude that we hear God's voice more clearly. And it's through the pain of letting go that we learn to hold on to God more tightly. Separation, though painful, is a divine tool for our spiritual growth and alignment with God's higher calling. Embrace this season, my friends, for it is a bridge to your divine destiny opening. What happens when we obey God's call and let go of our attachments? When we find the courage to answer God's call, we step into the divine paradigm shift. We transition from the comfortable and familiar to the realm of the unknown, where faith is our only guide. This might feel daunting, but it is in these moments that we experience the divine wealth transfer, a supernatural provision that is only unlocked through obedience and detachment. Let's take a moment to ponder on the story of Joseph. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned. Yet he held fast to his faith and obeyed God's call. His journey was not easy. It was marred by betrayal, hardship, and isolation. But through his obedience, he was elevated from a prisoner to the ruler of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. This is a testament to the divine wealth transfer that occurs when we obey God's call. The divine wealth transfer isn't just about material wealth. It's also about spiritual wealth, wisdom, authority, and revelation. It's about the blessings that God has in store for us, blessings that are far more abundant than anything we could ever imagine or create on our own. When we obey God's call, we are essentially trading our limited human perspective for God's infinite divine perspective. We are letting go of our attachments to the things of this world and opening ourselves up to receive the supernatural provision that only comes from God. This divine wealth transfer is not a one-time event. It's a continuous process that happens every time we choose obedience over comfort, faith over fear, and God's will over our own. It's a process that requires us to let go of our need for control and to trust in God's perfect timing and plan. And as we do so, we find that our obedience doesn't just bring blessings into our own lives. It also positions us to be a blessing to others, to be used by God in powerful, transformative ways. Closing. Obedience to God's call releases divine provision and favor in our lives. We are not just receivers, but also conduits of divine wealth called to steward it with wisdom and grace. So let's embrace this divine process and step boldly into the destiny God has prepared for us. Why do we feel alone and silent during this journey of obedience? This is a question we often find ourselves asking. The answer lies within the divine process of silence and separation, which serve as our training grounds. Just as a seed must first be buried in darkness before it can grow into a beautiful flower, so too must we endure seasons of silence and solitude to fully blossom into our divine purpose. Consider the example of Jesus Christ. Before he embarked on his divine mission, he spent 40 days fasting in the wilderness. This was not a time of punishment or isolation, but rather a sacred period of preparation. It was a time for him to connect deeply with his divine purpose, to tune into the higher frequencies of the Spirit, and to prepare himself for the monumental task that lay ahead. This wilderness season, this time of silence and separation, is not a punishment. It is a divinely ordained training ground. It is a time for us to tune into the higher frequencies of the Spirit, to listen for the still small voice that whispers divine wisdom and revelation. As we navigate these wilderness seasons, we are preparing ourselves for a supernatural transfer of resources, authority, and revelation. This is not a process that can be rushed or bypassed. It requires patience, faith, and a deep trust in the divine timing and orchestration of our lives. The silence and the solitude, they refine us. They strip away the unnecessary, the superficial, the distractions that keep us from truly hearing and understanding the divine call. They help us to develop spiritual sensitivity, to discern the divine voice amidst the noise of the world. So when we find ourselves in these seasons of silence and separation, let us not despair. Instead, let us embrace them as the divine training grounds they are. Let us take comfort in the knowledge that we are being prepared for something far greater than we can currently comprehend. Silence and separation are not punishments, but sacred seasons of divine training. And it is in these seasons that we are truly prepared to step into our divine destiny. What lies at the end of this journey of obedience and separation, you may ask? The answer is nothing less than the birth of a new identity, a divine inheritance that comes from walking steadfastly in obedience and faith. This is not an identity shaped by the world, but one sculpted by the divine hand of the Creator. It's an identity that carries blessings, authority, and a legacy that transcends generations. Just as a butterfly emerges from its cocoon, transformed and ready to take flight, so too does the chosen one emerge from this journey, forever changed. This transformation is not without its challenges. Like the butterfly, the chosen one must endure a period of isolation and struggle. But it's through these hardships that a new identity is born. Consider the biblical figures who walked this path before us. Abraham, who left his homeland and family to follow God's call, became the father of many nations. Moses, who endured years in the desert, was chosen to lead his people to freedom. Joseph, sold into slavery by his own brothers, rose to become a powerful ruler in Egypt. And Jesus, who suffered the ultimate sacrifice on the cross, was resurrected and given the name above all names. Each of these figures faced trials and tribulations, but it was through these hardships that their true identities were revealed. In the same way, the journey of the chosen one may lead to misunderstanding, isolation, and emotional pain. But remember, it's through these trials that we are refined. It's through these trials that our spirit is tuned to new frequencies, and it's through these trials that we are prepared for a supernatural transfer of resources, authority, and revelation. As we walk in faith and obedience, we step into a new chapter filled with multiplication, legacy, and generational breakthrough. Heaven already stands with us, and our obedience will produce undeniable fruit and open impossible doors. This is the birth of a new identity. This is the divine inheritance that awaits those who are willing to answer the call, to embrace the journey, and to step into their destiny.